Hey there, I'm testing video here. It is not working, folks. My first time doing this. I guess I'll just take this off. So, my name is Joshua Spray. I am coming on here live from this luxurious Airbnb. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about myself here in a second, but the purpose of this video is to I guess get the information out there about another pharmaceutical company that you probably never heard of. And they're one of the largest in the entire world. In fact, they are the world's largest biotech company. Their name is Roche Pharmaceuticals. And to let you know about them here in a minute, I will tell you my story and why it's relevant. When I was approximately 17 to 18 years old, I took this drug produced by this pharmaceutical company, Roche, and it's called Accutane. I know dozens of other people who have taken it, and I'm sure there are tens of thousands, if not millions, of people across the world who have also taken this drug. Clearly, now on their website, it states that there are extreme warnings, black box warnings. One of those is birth defects. So if you are a patient taking this drug, it is advisable that you don't get pregnant, or you don't take it while you are pregnant. What they don't tell you is, and they didn't tell me or my parents way back in the day of approximately, let's see, what was years, 1998 to the year 2000. In between those years, it was the wild, wild west for these companies. And I took this drug because everybody else in my area was. I had acne scars. I had pretty bad acne. And my doctor, my family doctor, he suggested also that I take this medication. I honestly don't remember how long I took it, but it was for a long time. And the whole purpose behind it is it stays into your system throughout your entire life so that you never get acne ever again. Long-term effects of taking this drug are pretty substantial. There are people who have reported gastrointestinal issues like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, stuff like that. But there are also other people who have experienced, not necessarily personally in their own body, issues, but in the bodies of their children being born. Me and my now ex, we have experienced having to bury two of our children from a very rare heart disease called tetralogy of Fallot. And this disease is typically something that is genetic. Of course, being concerned about this genetic disease, we had our blood tested, our DNA tested, and they found out that indeed we were both negative for the trait. And so what was it? We didn't know. And I've lived almost 17 years wondering that same question. And on this video, I kind of want to lay out a big picture of what it's like to lose a child, and then to 17 years later find out that it was probably because of this drug Accutane. Now, tetralogy of Fallot is one of the top birth defects on the list of defects from their black box warnings on the Accutane information page. And I've reached out to several attorneys since finding out, and nobody will take my case. And so, I find that very disappointing. And at the very least, what I can do is try to expose these boogers and help you all to take action if you still have time to do so, and also being able to avoid these type of drugs altogether. Um, so between the years of 1998 and 2000, I had taken this drug. Um, my like I said, my doctor in American Fork, Utah, is somebody who had told me that it would be safe to take, and so I took it. Um, Roche Pharmaceuticals, they are the world's largest biotech company with truly, this is from their website, with truly differentiated medicines in oncology, immunology, infectious diseases, and so on and so forth with the nervous system. Roche is also the world leader in vitro diagnostics and tissue based cancer diagnostics, and a front runner in the diabetes management. Um, also, so now what is Accutane? Also known as Roaccutane, is indicated for the treatment of severe forms of acne, nodular and conglobate acne, or acne at risk of permanent scarring, which I had. And acne is which has failed to respond to standard therapies, which synthetic antibacterials and topical therapy. And I tried everything that was available to me at that time, and like tetracycline and so forth. And this is the drug of choice in my area. Um, one side note about this all is one of the big side effects of this drug is also like irritable bowel syndrome. And in 2003-ish, I returned home from a 2-year mission as a missionary for my church. Um, I lived in Paraguay for a period of 2 years, and my doctor, same doctor who prescribed me this medication, said it was irritable bowel syndrome, probably from parasites or something like that. And he diagnosed me with IBS. And come to find out 17 years later that this is one of the number one causes of Accutane is IBS. And it was really interesting because I've been very active in my athletics, martial arts, and so forth. And around that time period of taking this medication, I had exercise induced uh, diarrhea, which I hadn't had before. And so I'd be working out like crazy, and then all of a sudden have this urge that I had to go to the bathroom. It was very annoying. And quite honestly, uh, I avoided super strenuous activities from there on out. In 2005, we had our first child. His name was Gavin. He was born with a major heart defect, like I said, tetralogy of Fallot, and he also had in his trachea, his tracheal rings were complete. Now, normally in a person's throat, they have a C shape, so there's there's room for expansion. Well, his were completely circle, all the way down, and then he had this heart disease. I'll have links to all this stuff in the comments. This drug causes birth defects for cardiovascular diseases, and tetralogy of Fallot is on that list. If you click on the link below, it's called aboutbirthdefects.org/Accutane. You'll find all the information you need about this. The lead geneticist at the Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City ran blood samples of both me and my now ex, to see if there was genetic markers in our DNA, and we both came back negative. He came back baffled with the results, stating that science simply wasn't advanced enough to see the root cause, and he was most positive that it was a genetic thing. And one thing to note too is like earlier in our son's stay, in the hospital, the primary children's folks had actually erased on his chart the root cause of this, and they ended up writing in there that we were first cousins, which is completely false as well. And so, um, the treatment of both of our sons was diminished because of that basic information in there. Because typically, when they have somebody with tetralogy of Fallot, it's because they're first cousins. They're inbred. You see it a lot in the polygamous communities in Utah. Um, my son, he endured open heart surgery multiple times, and he lived for a period of 11 days in the hospital, and he ultimately did not survive. Um, I had to do what no parent should ever have to do, which is bury their son. And it forever changed who I was to my core, my belief system, everything. It just totally rocked my world. Um, and I always wondered why it happened, not only once but twice. So in 2006, we waited several months and we're like, let's try this again. This time we had the watchful eye of doctors and like the OBGYN and other uh, high risk doctors in place the entire pregnancy. And they found that our son Landon, before he was born, they found that he had the same exact heart disease, tetralogy of Fallot. What they didn't find while he was in the womb was he also had another birth defect, which was an imperforate anus, which is he just didn't have an anus, a bumhole. And so when he was born, we delivered him at the University of Utah, where they immediately cleaned him up and they walked him over to Primary Children's, which is all connected into the same hospital, and checked him into the NICU there. And when they were inspecting him over there, they found that indeed he had an imperforate anus. And that is a huge red flag. Again, gastrointestinal issues and birth defects, or in just in general. So my son had that, and he had tetralogy of Fallot. Well, he lived for a period of 9 months. He endured a successful open heart surgery, but when they went to create his anus at the age of 9 months, there were some complications, and his heart eventually stopped during a surgery. And so, there we are once again at the same grave site, having to bury a second son right next to each other. And all we wanted in life was to start a family. And 17 years later, to find out that it was probably from this medication that I took when I was a teenager that caused these birth defects in my children. And what I'm really inflamed about is I'm calling attorneys all around the country who have dealt with these type of cases, and I can't even get to talk to an attorney. I have to talk to the front desk, and the front desk goes to the paralegals, and the paralegals do their research, and they say, no, we don't do Accutane. The United States government has been throwing out thousands of cases against Accutane. And the majority of them that I've seen are for personal issues, for gastrointestinal problems like irritable bowel syndrome. And so these attorneys are like, we're not even going to spend our time on this. Something like this, a case like mine, it would take 3 to 5 years of resources and, fighting against the world's largest biotech company. And, I know that the potential payout could be huge, but they're not willing to do that because chances are it's not going to happen. according to what they're seeing in the court system. People have tried and they've spent thousands, if not millions, on resources, and they're just not going to do it. So I said, well, we live in a day and age where we have the ability to at least try to spread the message and to maybe expose these people, these giant companies who don't mind messing with our lives in turn of profit, even if they have to pay a few $1 billion for killing, 1,000 people, which is true, by the way. They don't mind paying that fine because their total profit is far greater than the fine. And so that's a great return on investment to them. They don't have to lose sleep at night because, when they're a huge company with tens of thousands of employees, it's, it is what it is, right? It's disgusting. To avoid further devastation in my story, in 2008, we adopted our first son, technically our third son. He's now 14 years old. The whole adoption community is just really, it's beautiful on one end and it's disgusting on the other. You find out when you go, at least we did in 2008, it was, again, the Wild West. Things were done differently then than they are now, thank goodness. But we were given a sheet of paper. I'm just going off on a tangent here, but we were given a sheet of paper when we first signed up for an agency, and they said, okay, here's how it works. If you're wanting to adopt, you can choose your race and gender, and here's the price for the different races, and here's the breakdown of the different genders per race. And we're like, what? And at the very bottom of the list was if you wanted a son, and if you wanted a black son. They were at the very bottom because there was a supply and demand, and it turns out there was a bunch of, that was the most common, was black boys. And, we were of the opinion that in natural life, you don't get to choose what gender your baby comes in. And so we just put in, and we said, I don't care, whatever comes in our direction, that's what we'll, that's who will adopt. So that adoption went pretty well. They're wildly expensive. So anytime you see somebody, or somebody who has adopted a child, just know, they're most likely coming from a background of just infertility or tragedy of some sort. And also, it's not at all in the ballpark of a regular pregnancy. We're talking base price for adopting a child back in 2008 was about $35,000. And that's something that we simply didn't have. And we pulled resources from friends and family because they knew our story. And they're like, yeah, these guys deserve to be parents. And, we borrowed money and we were gifted money. And thank God for that. In 2011, we decided to adopt another child. And this time, birth father wouldn't sign off his rights, and birth mother had signed over her rights to us. And so we went, the agency that we were working with dropped us, and we went 4.5 years back and forth in court systems against birth father, all the way to the United States Supreme Court. We eventually won because we had the better lawyer, and it was an awful situation for both sides. This is one of those situations that went on for so long. My heart started to change, and it was already going forward. And I just, there's a lot of regret on my end for that situation. And I'm laying all this out here because this is the type of path that we took because our sons passed away, because I believe Accutane was the culprit, Roche Pharmaceuticals. Um, Shortly after we were able to officially adopt our son, we ended up getting a divorce. And this was approximately in 2016. And, you know, another thing I was diagnosed with after getting divorced was narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is, again, it's on the list of direct cause of drug defects from Accutane is narcolepsy. And I feel like the narcolepsy part is a mix of that and trauma. I was also diagnosed in 2018 with severe PTSD. That's something, uh, I just shut off my feelings. When you lose one child, that's one thing. Then when you lose a second, and then go through the adoption process like we did, I just learned to shut off my feelings and be okay with being miserable as an individual human being. And I didn't realize that PTSD was a thing, and that you don't have to be a war soldier, on the front lines to experience post-traumatic stress disorder. And my therapist, once I started going, and I found a great therapist, she wanted to give me, perform the test of PTSD, and so she went through um, the whole process with me, and generated a report saying that I had um, a severe case of PTSD. um, in 2021, I'm still going. 2021, I eventually filed bankruptcy, Chapter 13, and then earlier this year, I filed for Chapter 7. It's this progression of, uh, you know, the life I was leading had spiraled out of control, and um, I no longer have the grasp that I had before on life. I don't have the same vision of my future, my same goals, none of that. It was all blown out of the water, and I started to live a life of scarcity mindset because, uh, at any given moment, any of my kids could die. I was living in fear, and so that was my world. Now I'm healing, um, making some big leaps and bounds, and really taking back my life. And that's when the information about Accutane came into my purview. We were at Yellowstone National Park, and I was driving in a car with my girlfriend and my brother from Yellowstone back to Utah. And my brother said, "Hey, didn't you take that drug Accutane back in the day?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did. And me and a lot of other people did too." He said, I heard something that they cause birth defects. You might want to look that up. And while he was driving, I was searching it up, and it turns out that, you know, on that list, other than, narcolepsy, uh, irritable bowel syndrome, and so forth, but the biggest red flag on there was the birth defects. And on that list of cardiovascular birth defects was tetralogy of Fallot. It is a very rare heart disease, and it was something that was just, it took my breath away. And the immediate thought that I had was, well, there's, in court cases, because I dealt with some court casing before, is like there's a time period in which you usually have to, there's precedence. You have to file these things immediately within that time period. Otherwise, you're screwed, So I was like, I'll start calling around, and that's what I did. For several months now, I've contacted pretty much every attorney in the country who had dealt with Accutane, and every single one of them are saying the same exact thing. Sorry, can't help you. The last one I called said, well, you're going to want to contact the American Bar Association and talk to them about it, but we don't handle those anymore. Um, so there's a lot of information about this company out there, and the kind of defects, the side effects that cause people a lot of harm. And if you don't take action when something goes awry in your world, like I had no idea that drug could have caused all of these things, but like I just feel it inside of me that is the leading cause of all the things that were happening physically to me and my children, which in turn has completely changed who I am as a person, and the whole outcome of my future from that moment forward. But now moving forward, I'm not going to allow that to control my life. And that's what I'm here to tell people as well, is you have the ability to change your life and to take back what you had before this trauma came into your life. You have the ability to heal and to feel again. Because what happens is you become numb to the constant battle in your head, these voices that talk in your head that you're not good enough, that you're the cause of their deaths, that you're the reason all of this happened. And, you know, it's no wonder that a lot of people commit suicide. And you know, I've been there. I haven't attempted anything like that before, but certainly those thoughts have crossed my mind at one point or another, and it's not a good feeling to be in. But you're just so numbed out at everything else going around. You're just like, what's the point anymore? I'm worth more dead than I am alive, and that's what goes through your head, and you don't realize when you're having those thoughts that you know, God, I am a father, I am a lover, I am a brother, I am a friend, I am a son, you know, all of those things, an uncle, whatever those hats and roles that we play in life. We have all these people who do love and care about us, and we need to take a step back and pause and remember those people, and remember like how important we are. And you get to the point where you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. And you mean it. And you have a smile because you say it. And I'm here to tell you guys that I sincerely love you, even though I don't know who you are. And uh, I just hope and I pray that no matter where you're at in your process of healing, if tragedy hasn't struck your door, well, it certainly will, because death is one of those unfortunate things about humans that we don't prepare for. There's no training on preparing for death, you know, in our system, and I think we just need to be more open to talking about it as human beings and being more honest with ourselves. Let's talk about death. You know, it's a scary thing, but it doesn't have to be scary. And when you're mentally and emotionally prepared for something to happen, when it does happen, you have the tools in place to have a more easeful recovery from it, instead of bottling it in and letting it fester, you know. And that's all I have for right now. I hope you found this helpful, and I know I've been all over the place, but this is just something that needs to get out there. I don't know who's going to watch this, but maybe somebody will. Love you all.